Thank you all for being here. Everybody take a look around the room and see what a great crowd we have to continue the resistance. I'm State Representative Lou Lang, and I'm the Niles Township Democratic Committeeman. I'll spare you the rest of my titles. Mostly, I'm here to work with you to make Illinois a better place in which to live. Are you all for that? Those of you who came in and saw one of the wonderful volunteers at their laptops, I appreciate it. Those who did not, sneak over there during the meeting so that we have all of your names and phone numbers and email addresses, so we can continue to be in touch with you, so you can help us help you do the things we need to do to turn Illinois and our country back to the people who care about it.
Yeah.
The Niles Township Democratic Organization is in the process of growing. We need you, not just to come to a meeting, although we love when you come to a meeting, not just to go to rallies, although everyone in this room's been at a rally or 50 in the last few months. But we have to do more than rally, don't we? We have to work to make changes to make this a better place. And we need you to do that. So the purpose of this meeting today is to give you some education about what's been going on some important issues, both nationally and within the state of Illinois. And then to work on an action plan together, to talk to you about what the Niles Township Democrats are going to do, not just within the township, but all over the county and all over the state of Illinois, to really make a difference. Because unless we elect the right people to public office, you can go to 1,000 rallies and it won't make any difference at all. We have to put our feet on the ground and our ears to the phones and make a difference, and we're going to do that together. And so, let me just go right into the program by introducing a really fine immigration lawyer that lives in our community. She knows what's going on the Muslim ban, and she knows what's going on relative to immigration issues and refugee issues. And I think we need to hear about this, because if we only listen to cable, and if we only read the papers, some of which you should never read, you won't get the real facts. So we wanted to bring you someone who knew what was going on and could speak directly to you. So I'd like to introduce Ina Winston to you now.
Thank you very much. First of all, a shout out to our political leadership. We're really lucky to have intelligent and very effective political leadership. Louder. So a shout out. Can you hear? No? Can you hear now? Yes. Okay. So a shout out to our political leadership and a big thank you. My name is Ina Winston. I've been an attorney at the Chicago Legal Clinic doing immigration law for the last 10 years. We are a not-for-profit. We're located in Pilsen at 19th and Ashland. And before that, in my other life, I was an attorney for the sanitary district. So, I come to this with different perspectives. When the issue of the bans came up, I did go out to the airport, and what I found in talking to people about this afterwards is that it's really incumbent upon all of us to do what we can to lessen the sense of fear that people have that fuels this toxic environment in which large numbers of groups of people are demonized. And I, like other Americans, I ask myself, how are refugees vetted? It's a legitimate question. And what I found is that refugees are the most extensively vetted group of any people who enter the United States. Let's put it this way. The U.S. government knows much more about refugees who come here than you know about your next door neighbor. A little bit of definition. A refugee is a person who is living outside their own home country because they have a well-founded fear of persecution on the basis of race, or religion, or nationality, political origin, or because they belong to some other ascertainable social group. Refugees, no one applies to be a refugee. The UN designates certain groups of people as meeting the definition of refugees and then tries to help those who are in the direst need. Refugees are referred by the UN Refugee Agency, which collects the initial documentation and the biographic information. That information is then sent to the Department of State's Resettlement Support Center. They conduct an in-depth interview in the country where the potential refugee is, and they then enter that data into the Department of State's Worldwide Refugee Admission Refugee Processing System. Security checks then begin. The data is checked against the National Counterterrorism Center's data for that person, the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Defense, and the Department of State. They are looking not only at that person's activities, but that person's associations with known bad actors. The security checks are then transmitted back to the Department of Homeland Security and to the Department of State. The results are screened, more in-person, in-depth interviews are held, and the biometric data is collected. That biometric data is screened against the FBI's database, against the Department of Homeland Security's database, which includes worldwide watch list information, and against the Department of Defense's security database. The average time for vetting is between 18 and 24 months. So these people are extensively and in-depth vetted before they come to us. The likelihood of harm to the American public is so minimal. Before the person actually boards the plane, security checks are done again. And I'd like to tell you about my personal experience with a refugee family. A family came to us. They were refugees who had been caught in the Hutu-Tutsi conflict. The family consisted of a biological dad, a stepmom, a disabled son, adult son, young adult, who was profoundly mentally disabled and physically wheelchair bound. And there were 3 other now adult children. And they had come as refugees because they had fled persecution, war, and famine. They fled from Burundi to Tanzania to the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And it was very obvious that their disabled son was loved and cherished by this family. I could not imagine the reality of fleeing from war and danger with a profoundly disabled child. They came to us because it was important for their son to become a U.S. citizen in order to retain certain benefits. So we got a guardianship order so that the stepmom, who was the most articulate person, could be his representative for the oath-taking purpose and in the immigration interview. When I went to the immigration interview, I was kind of worried because it was obvious that he was never going to be able to work. He was profoundly disabled. And we got there, I explained the situation to the officer. She was very professional. And at one point, he began to drool. And Mom, wearing her simple African outfit, went over and just lovingly wiped his face off. And then he began to moan. And the family went over to try and get him to be quiet. And the officer said, "Oh, that's okay. The most important thing is that he's safe and comfortable. It's okay if he makes noise." And you could see in these people's faces a little bit of relaxation, a sense of relief. And we went through the rest of the case, and the officer said at the end that she was going to grant the citizenship application. And it made me so proud to be an American. This is what a good country does. This is what a country that's the leader of the free world does. Tell your friends to reduce the level of fear that fuels this toxic environment we're living in. As far as the court, this is the reality. This is who is coming to our country. This is what we have to fight for, especially in the midterms. I think it's really important to keep this in our own minds as to why we're doing this. how much it means. It means so much to the individuals who are affected, but it means so much for our national character and who we are as a country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The stories regarding what the Trump administration has done to immigrants are appalling. I would like to let you know, if you don't, that the night that the original Muslim ban went into effect and thousands went to the airports to protect legal citizens or legal residents in the state of Illinois, the governor of the state of Illinois was in California sipping wine with the Koch brothers. Yeah. Not a joke. That's where he was. While many of you, who was at the airport that night? While many of you were at the airport that night defending freedom, he fled the state, not to be found when the people of the state of Illinois needed him most. So while we're here, and it's important for you to know who supports this organization, so first, let me point out a couple of my colleagues in the Illinois General Assembly who are here. First, my Director of Protocol, Representative Marty Moylan from Des Moines. And next,
and ready to go, Mr. Leader.
That's why he's my Director of Protocol. And also with us, who's disappeared, she's somewhere here, State Representative Laura Fine, our very own. We also have quite a few members of the village board: Michelle Bromberg, Village of Skokie, Ralph Klein, Village Clerk Pramod Shah, Village Trustee Alonka Ulrich, Park Board Commissioners Mo Yanes, Mike Alter, Township Trustee Don Gelfund, Township Trustee Tony Lundeen, Township Trustee Mark Collins, Committeeman Dean Maragos, where are you, Dean? Committeeman Mark Walker, way in the back. If I missed your name, send your name up here, and I'll make sure people know who the elected officials are who are here. So, while we wait for our Congresswoman, who is a little late because she had other places to go before she came here, it's important that you know that we can accomplish great things in Springfield if given the opportunity. You will hear from my colleagues here at the table when they come up to speak the difficulties we have had as progressive Democrats in dealing with a governor who doesn't understand his job too well. A governor that doesn't want to learn his job, and a governor that isn't around when you need him. A governor who has said to the people of Illinois he wants to have a budget but has never entered the room to do one. A governor who has said he's for women's rights but promises to veto the most important bill for women's rights that we passed in many years in the Illinois House of Representatives, soon to pass in the Illinois Senate. And this is why, along with many other things we will discuss, that we need all of you fully engaged, fully working, fully involved. And so, the next person I want to introduce to you is a real fighter in the Illinois General Assembly for women's rights. A real fighter for human services. A real fighter for all that's good in Illinois and all the progressive Democrats in the state of Illinois stand for. She's going to spend some time talking to us about women's rights and about all the work that went into her passage this week of House Bill 40. State Representative Sara Feigenholtz.
Let's give it up for Lou Lag. lucky. I'm really lucky. Lou and I are now suite mates. We share a wonderful part of an office and get to see each other all the time. But I've known Lou since I first got elected. We're not going to talk about how long ago that was, but he was there before I was. And one of Lou's famous lines when I used to shrek about my bills is, and say, I don't know if I have enough votes, and I would second guess myself, and he would give me the confidence to get up there, to fight, to talk about what I believe in, and he would say, Flipowitz, call your bill. And that's what I did. So let's thank him, because he's the man who is one of our greatest leaders in Springfield and inspires us every day, and I love him. So as Lou was talking earlier, he thanked all of you for being here. Only Lou Lang can pack a room on a Sunday afternoon like this. But we are all progressive Democrats, and we are here to talk about how the heart and soul of the progressive movement and the Democratic Party is at stake right now in our lives. And we have to plot a course for our future so that we can unseat two very, very strange men. One of which is our president, which is, I still can't get it out, and say it. But also our governor, who is also, from my experience with him, incompetent, has no idea how to govern, has zero leadership skills, is not there for us and the things and the values that we believe in and our family values, and he's got to go. Now, what Donald Trump and Bruce Rauner have in common is they both like to govern by chaos. They both are disrespectful to women, minorities, people with disabilities, and are reckless. You could see by what Ina was talking about, our experience with Donald Trump and his Muslim ban at 2 in the morning on a Friday night was absolutely earth-shattering to everyone in this room. I know that I was greatly shaken by this, and so were a lot of members of my community. And he has created this toxic, destabilized environment. He's a fear-monger, and in many, many ways the governor is doing the very same thing. Chaos, chaos, chaos. Did I say that enough? So, but Bruce Rauner, one of the things about him is he has no leadership skills, and he proved that in many different ways. He is about deception and destruction and all of the things we hold dear, and I'm sure that when Greg Harris, who is our budgeteer, comes up and starts to talk to you about how the governor is dismantling programs that are the anchors of our community, whether it's the Council for Jewish Elderly's senior program or mental health programs in our communities. The governor just doesn't get it. He has not walked a day in the shoes of people who really need our help. And he is dismantling plank by plank the things that are important to us, whether it's a human rights violation or just insulting women. We already know what Donald Trump says about women, but in a very passive way, our governor is doing the very same thing. So as Lou mentioned, this week we passed a bill in the Illinois House, House Bill 40. Which I believe is the most sweeping pro-choice piece of legislation to come before the General Assembly in 17 years. I want you to know that there was not one Republican vote on this piece of legislation. It was passed by people who are Democrats. And I'm sure that all of the pro-choice advocates and activists in the room heard what I heard when Donald Trump was running for president, when he said, yeah, abortion could be illegal in some states. Yes, I plan on appointing Supreme Court justices in the likes of Anton Scalia. And since then, he has followed his word. He is signing executive orders about funding for Planned Parenthood, and right before our very eyes, we are watching the door to a woman's right to choose close step by step every day. So House Bill 40 became much more important because with Trump's promise to overturn Roe, we had to review our laws on the books in the state of Illinois, because we have been living under the color and protection of Roe, and if it is overturned, we need to take a look at what we've got in our own books to make sure that we keep abortion safe, legal, and accessible in the state of Illinois. I know everybody in this room wants to do that, right? There were some really unsavory, frightening elements to the 1975 Abortion Act that needed to be struck from statute. So what was in House Bill 40? It was a repeal of the trigger law that would prevent abortion from, striking it would prevent abortion from becoming illegal in Illinois when Roe is overturned. The second part of the bill repealed the Medicaid restriction on abortion, ending a horrible discriminatory denial of basic health care for the most vulnerable people in our state who depend on Medicaid as their insurer. And it also repealed the part where state employees were denied access to that abortion care service. Those were the elements of the bill. The protections are so common sense that in 2014, then candidate Bruce Rauner not only checked all of the boxes, but he also added additional comments on a separate piece of paper that we're going to show you on the screen, because it is the smoking gun of what this man has done and plans to do to women and people he promised, but he signed it and dated it. Can you see this document? Is that at all readable? Okay, well, if you can't read it, we have copies of it. It's a document that everybody in this room may want to have, and we're happy to get it to you. But here are some direct quotes from Bruce Rauner's questionnaire. I fundamentally believe that abortion should be a woman's private decision, and that this decision should not be impeded by government. This principle, he continues, should apply to all women, regardless of income level or location of residency. Here we go, here's the big one. As governor, I will work for equal access to contraception and abortion services. I dislike the law that restricts abortion coverage under the state Medicaid plan and state employee health insurance. I would support a legislative effort to reverse that law. Right, exactly. That's what we call the big lie. This was a promise that Bruce Rauner made to everyone in this state who's pro-choice. We trusted him, and he asked us to take him at his word. And then on Friday, April 14th, he released a statement announcing that he would veto House Bill 40 if it ever got to his desk. What he was trying to do is kill the bill and chill the votes on the bill so it would never get to his desk. So in politics, you are only as good as your word. Bruce Rauner betrayed those who supported him because of his stated position on choice, and he had bad intentions. And as I said, I believe that he never wanted that bill to get to his desk. He knew that we had the votes. He knew that last week was third reading deadline. And he tried to kill a bill that he promised he would sign. Well, guess what, Bruce? Here's the deal. House Bill 40 is headed your way, and there is not enough duct tape in the world that's gonna get you out of this. He's always got that duct tape in it. You are going to have to sign this bill like you promised when it comes to your desk. And so everyone in this room, you need to know something. This bill was not easy to pass, and the reason it passed is because Lou Lang and Jan Schakowsky and Ben Head and Lucy Moog and Indivisible and Men for Choice and Pantsuit Nation and every other progressive organization that has sprouted, that has risen up to resist what is going on in Washington and what Bruce Rauner is doing to the state of Illinois, put at least 5,000 phone calls into the districts of legislators to pro-choice residents and ask them to call and urge their legislators to support House Bill 40. So the reason this bill is heading to the governor, the reason is because of you. Give yourselves a hand. So what have we learned? Politics is no longer a spectator sport at all. The work on this bill is far from over. This bill is going to be called in the Senate either next week or the week after. And we are hoping that all of you continue your work, and we will share information with you if there are any senators who are on the bubble and struggling to support this bill. But I got to tell you, the toughest chamber is over. We will need your help to phone bank on this bill, especially when it gets to the governor's desk. We will need you to continue to phone bank. If Washington Republicans continue to try and repeal Obamacare in 2018, we will need you to knock on doors, register voters, and talk to people about what is at stake. And as of today, the election cycle has begun. We are a party of fairness and equality. We want good education for our children. We believe in fairness. We believe in lifting the middle class. We believe in helping the working men and women in labor in our communities. We want to lift people up. We are that party. So let's do this together. Let's keep fighting. Lou, thanks for having me here today.
Let's hear it for Sara Feigenholtz. For the progressive democratic movement. Sarah's right about that phone banking and those phone calls. We had 3 House Democrats that a week ago were not sure if they were going to vote for House Bill 40. But it was the thousands of calls made by this organization, by all the organizations Sarah talked about, that made the difference. When we talk to people and we explain to them the importance of legislation and they hear that their own constituents are for it, they change their minds in a big hurry. Sarah's right. It was you that made this happen. And while we're on the subject of women's issues, I have for many years been the proud chief sponsor in the House of the ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment. As I said at the rally in Springfield the other day, I don't know why the hell this hasn't passed yet, but it's mostly because of people called GOP. They're not interested in rights for women, but I promise you this, We're going to keep working on this. If the state of Nevada can pass this, so can we, and we're going to. Next, I'm going to introduce to you one of the great fighters I know. She's a great organizer, a great human being, more importantly, the most outstanding congressperson in the United States Congress, Jan Schakowsky.
Fighting crew, are you ready to beat Bruce Rauner? Yeah. Okay. So I have one thank you for Donald Trump. He has awakened a nasty sleeping giant. Right? Remember, he called Hillary a nasty woman. So I am really thrilled to see this great crowd. It's just incredible. In all my many, many years, many decades of being an organizer, I have never seen such a mobilization as I've seen right now all across the country. It's extraordinary, the grassroots effort and mobilization and organizing that's going on. The only question I get when I go to the grocery store, I'm at the gym, is, what can I do? Tell me, what can I do? Everybody wants to get involved. And the answer that we have learned, Sara Feigenholtz, from what just happened in Springfield is when we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. Say it with me, when we fight, we win. Absolutely. You know, left to its own, who knows what would have happened to that legislation. We had some people that were on the cusp here, and they didn't know how they were going to vote. And when they heard from their own constituents about it, and you know, and that's exactly the place that you want elected officials. You want them to worry more about their own constituents than anything else. Like in Washington, when we fight, we win. They thought after 7 years of promising that they would repeal Obamacare, they thought that once Donald Trump was elected, you know, but unfortunately they were like the dog that caught the car. Well, as long as Barack Obama was the president of the United States, they knew that he would veto the bill. So they never had to come up with a plan. Now there they were, with Donald Trump in the White House saying the same thing, and they could not come up with a piece of legislation that more than 17% of Americans thought was worth voting for. But why did that happen? That just minutes before they were about to call this miserable bill, you know, that threw 24 million people off of health care, that created an age tax for all of you, all of us who are, no, I'm older than that, 50, between 40 and 60, there would have been a huge increase in premiums that would have shortened the life of Medicare, and that would have given a $600 billion tax cut to the richest Americans, including Donald Trump. But what happened was there was this instant education on what was really in Obamacare. You know, for 7 years they had been ginning up their base. And when you only have 17% of people who support it, you know that there were not only Democrats, Republicans, Independents, there were a lot of Trump voters who all of a sudden discovered, I think this is me. I'm going to lose my health care. I'm going to have unaffordable premiums. And those rich guys that Donald Trump was railing against during the campaign, those are the guys who are going to be the chief beneficiaries. And so they had to pull the bill. It was an enormous, or as Trump would, a huge loss for the President of the United States and for the Republicans in Congress who had to pull that bill. but it was an enormous victory for all of you and all the grassroots people who made sure they voted out. So I just want to thank you. We, as Sarah said, I'm sure as Lou said too, we're around the corner from the 2018 elections. And we have a number of races in Illinois, not mine, that we have to change the member of, where the member of Congress can be changed. And all of us can be involved in districts outside our own, even outside the state of Illinois. We actually have an important primary coming up in June in Georgia. I mean, an election, a general election coming up in June in Georgia, where the Democrat came very close to winning it outright in the primary, and we could make a Democrat, Jon Ossoff, the congressman from Georgia. You know, we can do phone banks from Illinois. The phone works in Georgia, and we even have the technology to have an area code show up that makes it a local call in Georgia, so people will answer their phone, calling Democrats to get out to vote. So we are. I want to tell you, even getting rid of Bill O'Reilly on that was a victory of the grassroots as well, because it wasn't that he lost viewership. It was that the advertisers decided that it was not worth all the pressure that they were getting to continue to advertise on Fox while O'Reilly was on. So when we fight, we win. So now we've got a lot of work ahead of us, even on HB 40, going into the Senate, and then turning around this horrible commitment now that the governor has made. After, I hope you will get that out to everyone in writing, going out of his way, beyond the necessary words in the questionnaire, to say that he had to veto this legislation. And you know why, don't you? Because he thought, where am I going to get the votes in 2018? I'm going to have to get them from this right-wing Republican base. Because otherwise, and it's going to be a for sure, the Democrat is going to be the next governor of the state of Illinois. So, look at you, look around, what a great turnout. This room has been filled. I see some people standing in the back. We have fantastic legislators leading us here. We've got Lou Lang as the general of all these years speaking out. I had the honor and pleasure of serving for 8 years when in the state legislature. Sarah was there. You weren't there. You were Greg, were you? No, I didn't get to serve with you. And so it is really my honor and pleasure to just urge you on. If you aren't part of a group right now, stick with Lou and be part of this organization. There are so many people active right now. Follow your passion, and when we fight, we win. Hey.
Jan Schakowsky. Let's just hear it one more time for Jan Schakowsky. Thank you, Jan. Thank you for being here. So, ladies and gentlemen, yes, when Democrats fight, Democrats win. But when Democrats vote, Democrats win. If Democrats had voted on November 8th, Hillary Clinton would be President of the United States. If Democrats had voted in November of 2014, Bruce Rauner would not be governor of the state of Illinois. So we have a job ahead of us. This job is to do everything we can to get our own people out to vote. Because Republicans always vote. Those of you who have Republican friends, and I don't know why, but those of you who have Republican friends know they always vote. But you have Democratic friends and Democratic neighbors and Democratic relatives that don't always vote. Our job is to drag them to the polls and make them make a difference for all of us. And it's important that we elect a new governor in the state of Illinois for a number of reasons. And a number of reasons we can get into, but our next speaker is going to talk about the budget problems we have in the state of Illinois. And our next speaker is going to kill the narrative that's out there that this is some kind of a joint problem, that Democrats and big bad Bruce Rauner just cannot seem to get our act together to do a budget of the state of Illinois. This budget problem is the fault of one human being, and his name is Bruce Rauner. One human being. And if you don't believe me, you'll believe it after the next speaker, but I just want to tell you one story. One simple story. On Good Friday last year, Good Friday of 16, thank you, when no one was paying attention, when it was a day off for most people, and it happened to be World Autism Day. World Autism Day. The governor of the state of Illinois, by the stroke of his pen, cut the autism line item in the state budget to 0. Who's heard this story before? Who's heard it now? And who's going to tell it to everybody you know? If you don't have a governor with enough heart and enough soul to take care of autistic children, why the hell would he think he can be a leader for the state of Illinois? Our next speaker knows intimately about the problems of doing the budget in the state of Illinois because he's our chief budgeteer. The guy that's on the front lines every day and trying to make a difference and trying to get this budget to the goal line. He knows the problems, and he's going to tell us about them. My good friend, State Representative Greg Harris.
So thanks, Lou. Thank you all for coming out today. Yeah, I usually never disagree with my friend Sara Feigenholtz, but today I'm going to have to start my talk by doing something I've never done before, and that is disagree with her. Because Sara said a line in her remarks about the governor's backtracking on women's rights. And I wrote down what Sara said. She says, the governor just doesn't get it. You see, sir, I think that's wrong. He absolutely gets it. He absolutely gets that he promised people one thing on choice and then he did the opposite. And with guys like Trump and Rauner with their multi-billion-dollar budgets and their media machines, you gotta watch what they say, but then you have to watch what they really do. We heard what he said, oh, I'm so pro-choice, I will support women. But when the chance comes up to really act, he goes back on his word. And just to walk down memory lane a little bit on a couple of other things. Do you remember what he did the first month he was elected into office? One of the things he did? He went to the annual meeting, a big rally on the south side of Chicago, to the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights. And he accepted an award and stood up and gave a great speech about he was a great friend of the immigrant and refugee community in the state of Illinois. And then he went back to his office and he issued a ban on new refugee travel into the state of Illinois. Do you remember that? That Illinois was one of the states that tried to ban Muslims? So you watch what they say, but then you watch what they really do. You've seen him standing up many times in photo ops with senior citizens and people with disabilities. He never mentions when he's standing there, holding somebody's grandmother, around the shoulder and saying how much he cares for her, that he has also eliminated the community care program that provides in-home and in-community services for 39,000 senior citizens and people with disabilities. How do you justify that? How do you go stand next to people and say, I love you and I stand with you, and then you go back to your office and you take action that is going to force them out of their homes and into nursing homes, and I might add, at a cost of 4 times as much for the taxpayers of the state of Illinois. It's just wrong. So he gets it. He gets it, and this is exactly what he promised us. If you remember, you can Google this, if you got your phone, or you can go back home and look it up. April of 2015, the governor's interview with the Chicago Tribune editorial board, where they asked him what was going to be his goal as governor of the state of Illinois. And he says, I plan to use the crisis of leverage of money for human services and higher education to force a systematic change in collective bargaining. You can go look that up. He said that. Those were his words. He told us what he was going to do. He said he was going to come here, he was going to hold the human services budgets hostage, and he was going to hold higher education budgets hostage to force the legislature to take votes, to cut wages and benefits for working class people, to reduce the prevailing wage, and to eliminate collective bargaining. That is what he promised to do. That is what he's doing today. So let me give you a little bit of other history, and let's start at the beginning. December of 1818. This story goes way back. December of 1818. Yes, Lou was here. Lou was there. When Illinois became a state, Lou Lang, walked out there wherever they signed the statement documents, and he was holding the quill pen. But December of 1818 was the year the state of Illinois was founded. So for about 199 years, the state of Illinois has had Democratic governors, it has had Republican governors, it has had Democratic legislators, it has had Republican legislatures, it's even had some Whig legislatures back in the Lincoln times. But the one thing that all those Democrats and Republicans in every combination, whether they were good managers, bad managers, smart guys, not so smart guys, the one thing they have always been able to do for 200 years, 2 centuries, is they've always passed a state budget. All right? Some people might have liked what was in it, some people might not have liked what was in it, some would have wanted more, some would have wanted less, but for 200 years, they've done that job, the one single job the Constitution requires us to do. What has changed? One thing. Governor Bruce Rauner is now in charge. Now, when he feels too much pressure, we know that he will give in, because we have negotiated 7 different budget bills with him that he has eventually signed. Now remember, he always tells people, I will veto this. It will not become law. I will tell the Republicans to vote against it. Do you remember in his first term of office where he got every Republican in the House and Senate to vote to defund elementary and secondary education? Remember that? And then he went ahead and signed the bill anyway because he was afraid of the pressure he was going to get. So he threw everyone in his own party under the bus to make a political point, and then signed the bill to keep the schools open. He has signed legislation when we have forced his hand to provide federal funding. He has signed bills to provide stopgap funding for human services. He has provided stopgap funding for higher education. Sometimes you have to stare the guy down. It's sad, but that's what we come to. This guy who thinks he can still hold us all hostage for his own corporate agenda. And so Lou mentioned World Autism Day, and he mentioned the Good Friday Massacre as it's been described. But just a little bit more background on what Lou didn't say about the Good Friday Massacre. The reason that there was funding for the governor to cut was just weeks before the legislature and the governor had made a deal. We made a deal. The House and the Senate passed a budget for human services. It went to the governor and he signed it. Then weeks later, just a matter of days later on Good Friday, he cut autism. He cut homeless services. He cut the immigrant and refugee programs in the state. He cut funding for mental health. He cut after-school programs for all children. He eliminated all violence prevention programs for youth. And the list goes on. Something he had just agreed to in a bill he had just signed, he went and vetoed. So this is the problem in dealing with somebody who will sit with you, look you in the eye, and as Lou said, I'm the member of the House Democrats who's responsible to go to those negotiations with the Speaker, Mike Madigan, and work these things out. And you can go in there and you can sit with him, you can look him in the eye, he will agree with you, it will be put in writing, it will be voted on by both chambers of the General Assembly, then he will sign it and then go back. It's hard to do a deal in those kind of situations, so I just want to give you just, if you don't believe my words, just look at his actions. So you can go back and you can look in the media at the end of last year. We were having what were called leaders meetings on a regular basis. Every day of the week, including Saturdays and Sundays, the leadership of the House and Senate Republicans and Democrats with the governor, we would go to his office, whether it was in Springfield or in Chicago, and negotiate. We were working toward an agreement on a budget. December 5th, it was a Sunday. As we got very close to an agreement, the meeting ended, we left. That was the day the governor announced that he was suspending all future budget negotiations. So that tells you something. You might remember last month that after that meeting, after the governor suspended negotiations, the Senate Republicans and the Senate Democrats went to work on their own version of a deal which they called the Grand Bargain. And who remembers reading about that or hearing about that? It was a bipartisan deal between the Senate Democrats and the Senate Republicans on a compromised budget. The day it was expected to be put to a vote in the Senate, one by one, the governor called the Republican members into his office and pulled them off the vote. And the whole thing collapsed. So 2 times in the last 6 months, we've had an opportunity to end this crisis, to fund our schools, to keep our universities open, to pay back our backlog of $13 billion of unpaid bills, to keep elementary schools open and allow them to open in September. Fund human services, all the things states should do, and every time we get close to a deal, the guy walks away. So we have another bill in the Senate right now that will be acted on this coming week. It is a budget that is not a complete budget, but it's about $750 million that will go to all the human service agencies and all the colleges and universities in Illinois to allow them to stay open while we have this fight with them. It's $750 million for human services, higher education, and a year of MAP grants for college students so they can complete their education. When it comes out of the Senate, it's going to go to the governor, and then we'll see whether he signs this one or whether he vetoes it. But a lot of people in the state of Illinois are counting on this. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for coming here. But as Congresswoman Schakowsky said, as Lou has said, as Sarah said, this is a real fight for the heart and soul of America, the things that we believe in. Do we support women's rights? Do we support LGBT rights? Do we support immigrant and refugee rights? Do we support fair wages for working people? And we're going to have to go out and fight this fight on every street and every block in this state. And I'm looking forward to be part of that. And thank you, Lou.
Let's hear it for Greg Harris. A couple other things about the budget. So, we've made every attempt to compromise with this guy. Some say, well, how come you guys just don't compromise with the governor? We had. We passed property tax relief bills that he asked for. We passed, what else did we pass that he asked for? Workers' comp bills that he asked for. We've offered him all kinds of opportunities to sit down with us. But ladies and gentlemen, you can't negotiate a budget when one of your negotiating partners refuses to come into the room. You cannot do that. You cannot accomplish it. So we've tried. People don't think we have, but you need to tell the story out there that we have. You need to not let the public narrative continue that somehow House Democrats are the problem, or Senate Democrats are the problem. There's only one problem, and his name is Bruce Rauner. The good news, if there is any, is that Bruce Rauner and Donald Trump are the greatest organizing tools the progressive movement has ever had. And so, as I said before, we've got much to do, and we have to do it together. All the speeches by all these folks are wonderful speeches, and they tell a story. But you could listen to speeches from now until November of 2018, and if all we do is listen to speeches, nothing happens, except we get hungry sitting here. And so the Niles Township Democratic Organization, by the way, like many political organizations, not just ours, but since I have you captive, we'll talk about the Niles Township Democrats. We have things for you to do now, every day, through November of 2018, and after that, every day through November of 2020, when we elect the Democratic President of the United States of America. Let 2018 be the practice round for 2020. But let us not forget 2018. Let us get every person out to vote. Let us make every phone call. Let us knock on every door. And let us make sure our own people who have the greatest stake in what goes on in Springfield and the greatest stake about what goes on in Washington, let's get them out to vote. We must do that. Are you going to join us and help us do that? And a word about the governor's race. No, I'm not going to endorse somebody. Don't hold your breath. Democrats need to concentrate on beating up Bruce Rauner, not each other. So when I hear some people in this room or in other rooms saying, oh, I'm for this guy, that guy's not good, that's wrong. It's too early for that. Let the candidates do what they need to do, and one of them will surface. Our energy, our goal is to take Bruce Rauner out and elect the Democratic governor in the state of Illinois. And so when we pick sides too early, we make it difficult for someone who might win a primary that maybe we didn't choose. And maybe we've made that person weaker. Let's let Bruce Rauner get weaker. Let's us get stronger. What do you say? And when we get to picking a candidate, since each and every one of these candidates is a progressive Democrat, and since each and every one of these candidates would be a better governor than Bruce Rauner, hell, your Aunt Blabby would be a better governor than Bruce Rauner. Since they're all in the same place on all the issues, the only test for us must be, in the end, which of these candidates is most likely to beat Bruce Rauner. The only test. Who's going to beat Bruce Rauner? We'll get an answer to that question, but for now, let's focus like a laser on the failed governorship of Bruce Rauner. His incompetence, his failed leadership, his lack of vision, and his purposely holding up the budget of the state of Illinois, hurting millions of people every day for his own personal political agenda, which is not ours. And Jan points up a very important thing, which is probably the most important reason to elect a Democratic governor. Just as many in this room would say the most important reason to have elected a Democratic president is because of the United States Supreme Court, the most important reason to elect a Democratic governor is the next governor of Illinois will preside over the remap. And if you want to turn the state of Illinois back to the Republican Party, you just go ahead and elect a Republican governor and watch what happens. We cannot allow that to happen here in the state of Illinois. We have to take control of our own state. Now, having said all of these things, did everybody register when they came in? Who didn't register when you came in? Somebody grab that person by the scruff of the neck and get them to register. We have things for you to do right now. We have phone banking, we have letters, we have committees to join. And we're going to send you all information in the next several days about what these committees are. We're going to have a diversity committee, a voter outreach committee, an events committee. We're going to become big and strong and a political fighting force. And the reason we're going to do that is not to make the Niles Township Democratic Organization the best organization on the map, because it already is, but because we're going to use our collective energies and our collective resources and our collective time to make a difference all over this state and all over this country as we already have. Join us. Be with us. Come to a phone banking night. Come to 50 phone banking nights. There will be times going ahead in the primary, the general election of 2018, where we may take a bunch of people and go to a neighboring district where one of my colleagues needs some help, or where there's some incumbent Republican who should be in office no longer, and we can make a difference. Just like many of you got on buses and in cars to drive to Wisconsin or Iowa to help Barack, to help Hillary, to help Bernie, we're going to do that right here in the state of Illinois to make sure we have a strong Democratic majority in the House, a strong Democratic majority in the Senate, and every constitutional office, including the governor of the state of Illinois, have a big fat D next to their name. And you're going to help make that happen. There are still bills we are working on in the Illinois General Assembly that require some work. House Bill 40 requires some work. Bills regarding gun control and gun safety that just came out of the Senate need some work. We have to make calls. These are very tough bills. And so, again, we need your help. The goal of this meeting was to inspire you to be involved. And many of you already are. Many of you are involved in lots of different organizations, and I don't want to steal you from those organizations. Yes, I do. I'm just happy when you're working somewhere, when you're putting your heart and soul into this so that we're not just talking about a better Illinois, but we're making a better Illinois. And you can make that happen with us. So before we close this meeting, we still have some time. We have wonderful people here who are available to answer questions. So any of you that have any questions or comments, line up behind the microphones you see at both sides of the room, and let's hear your questions.
Prevent new companies from gaining exposure, cost consumers more to access the online resources of their choosing, tighten data caps with ever-increasing overage costs, and many other tangible effects. My question to all of you is, would you be willing to introduce legislation in the Illinois House for state-level net neutrality rules that protect consumers and ensure that new and existing businesses have a competitive and open platform to run their business from?
Absolutely. Before I turn this over to the state people, because that was your question, I just want to tell you, the last time this even was talked about, there was such an immediate, enormous outpouring against it. That is what we need to mobilize today. I mean, the very idea that we would interrupt the access to the internet universally for all Americans in an equal way is so unacceptable. And I am sure that, you know, all the millennials in the room, but everyone who wants to use their iPhone and have access, you need to weigh in on this. In a little, I'm going to run back and get my iPhone. I have Paul Ryan's home address. And the reason I think this is really important is that he has to understand, even though he's not our representative, he is the Speaker of the House, the enormous pressure that his members are feeling has to be felt by him. So I'm going to run back while the state people are answering and get that address for you. Fight on. We can win this. We absolutely can win this.
Now, when she gives you the address, don't all leave and drive up to Wisconsin. We need you right here. So I can't add anything to what the Congresswoman said, or even to the question. The answer is yes. Come see us. You're probably a greater expert on this issue than any of us. I want to learn more about it, but you're right on, and we're going to help you. Go ahead.
So I was wondering.
Press the power button. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. So it's still not working. Okay. Now it's working. Is it working now? Okay. So obviously HB 40 is a very important bill, but I was just wondering that given how we're worried about it being vetoed now, and given that it's changing something that has been law since the 1970s, why didn't we pass HB 40 at any point when we had a Democratic trifecta for 12 years between 2002 and 2014?
I'm happy to answer that. House Bill 40 has been, there's been attempts to eliminate the restriction on poor women and state employees many times. It has failed. This is the first time it has actually passed. I filed the same bill in the 99th General Assembly, so this is not a new attempt. This is something that we have been working on for a very, very long time, and even when, as long ago as when Jan was in the Illinois House, I remember we voted on, we had a bunch of votes one day on women's issues and access to reproductive rights. I also want people in this audience and you to understand that having access to a full palette of choices, of reproductive choices, of birth control, of abortion care, is a path for women to make decisions about their education, about their families. The Guttmacher Institute and statistics all over this world will tell you that when poor women can't get access to this service, it only drives them further and further into poverty. The prospect of abortion becoming illegal in the state of Illinois is daunting. There was a 17-bed septic abortion unit at Cook County Hospital. How many people in this room remember before 1973, the septic unit? Women would, with families. Dr. Lynn came to committee and testified. He was a resident at Cook County Hospital. And the contest that residents would have with each other would be how long these women could actually stay alive before they bled out. There was a woman who died in his arms, and she left 7 children orphans. We never want to go back to that. And I will guarantee you, never! And I will guarantee you that if we do not strike this language from Illinois statute and Roe is overturned, that the anti-choice zealots will drag us into court and use everything that we're trying to take out of statute to uphold illegal abortions in this state. That's why.
I have a a button that says, Roe v. Wade was not the beginning of women having abortions, it was the end of women dying from abortions. And I think that's good. All right, Paul Ryan, and I'm sure you can help get that out. Paul Ryan lives at 700 St. Lawrence Avenue, in Janesville, Wisconsin, 53545. His district borders Illinois, an easy drive also. But I think it's important. Let him know. I'm sorry. Okay, one more time. Paul Ryan, Speaker of the House, the Honorable Paul Ryan, 700 St. Louis Avenue. I said, I confused you. Okay. 700 St. Lawrence Avenue, Lawrence Avenue, Janesville, Wisconsin, 53545. Put it in your phone.
And when you send Speaker Ryan those letters, dear Speaker Ryan, Jan Schakowsky said it was okay for me to bring you at home. No, that's fine. You should actually. So that's a great tool to have. I want copies of all the letters you sent. That would be great. Yes.
Actually, I'd like to dovetail because I had seen Jan a week and a half ago and she talked about the address for Mr. Ryan. So my question is that I understand that Mr. Rauner maintains a number of residences, one of which is in Winnetka. Now, someone talked about banging on doors. Are there any ordinances that prevent people from going and visiting, knocking on doors, and perhaps rallying and making our voices heard at his North Shore residence?
So right over here is the Committeeman of Majority Township Democratic Organization. And he will lead a contingent of people to one of Mr. Rauner's 9 houses. Now, I understand. It's okay with me if Mr. Rauner has 8 houses. I only want the one he sleeps in Springfield. Right? So, Dean, what do you want to tell us?
I just want to comment on 2 things. Number one,
Go to the microphone.
I want to thank you for that comment on that. I want to let you know that I personally have gone to his home and dropped off door hangers to stop him. But recently, along with Jan and our elected officials, Mr. Rauner tried to pack the New Trier Trustee Board with a dark group of people with money from him and his cocktail buddy, Mr. Cook. We beat them 6-1. And I want to say that we did. And I want to thank Jan and all of you that helped us. We did it as individuals, and we will do it again when we knock him on his back. Thank you.
Thank you.
As I look around and see the Republicans in control of everything in Washington, it outrages me, and I have to think it's all, a lot of it is self-inflicted wounds that, and I'm very troubled by that, I look and see, Jan was saying that when the Democrats fight, the Democrats win, and I see Hillary didn't fight. We could have hand recounts in states like Wisconsin and Ohio and so on that might have turned the election. Hillary wasn't interested. There's all the cross-check. There's the other vote suppression things going on. And Donald Trump said the election was rigged. Hillary wouldn't say that. Same thing happened with Al Gore when the Republicans pulled that, knocked all those hundreds of thousands, or tens of thousands of people off the voter lists illegally in Florida. Al Gore wouldn't fight, George Bush won. John Kerry wouldn't fight, George Bush won. And we got Sam Alito, and we got John Roberts, and we got Gorsuch on the Supreme Court. So my question is, what is it going to take for the Democrats to fight?
Well, let me go first. This is Democrats fighting right here in this room. You heard a conversation about Obamacare not being repealed. That's because Democrats are fighting. You heard that House Bill 40 passed even with less Democrats in the House than we've had previously. Why? Because of the people in this room, because Democrats are fighting. Your point is well taken. We have to keep fighting. We have to fight harder, we have to fight every day, and right through the finish line. Jan.
I was just going to say that we're in uncharted territory with Trump in the White House right now. But we're also in uncharted territory with this mobilization that I'm seeing now. As someone who is an organizer, 44 plus decades, is bigger than the civil rights movement. There were a lot of wonderful people, but not as big as what I'm seeing now. Bigger than the Vietnam protests, and bigger than the Tea Party ever was when they took back the House in 2010. Intensity really matters. Showing up really matters. Size really matters. And we have seen an outpouring. How many of you participated in a women's march somewhere? Yeah. You know, I mean, I really think that we're also in a new place when it comes to waking people up. We should have before, I can agree with you with that, but I think Donald Trump and the likes of Donald Trump has really pushed us to the place we need to be.
Just want to say, and it just seems to me that somewhere at the highest levels of the Democratic Party, they prefer to let a George Bush or a Donald Trump take the White House and the Supreme Court rather than to stand up for the rights of minorities to vote.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. My answer to that is let's fix it. I have two questions. I'm going to take one turn at a time. Now that HB 40 has passed the House, what can we do to get a resounding victory in the Senate to make a statement this needs to pass?
Is this working?
Well, you know, I have to say that the Illinois Senate is very, very, very progressive. And I am sure that, you know, when a bill passes the first chamber, the pressure ratchets up in the second chamber. So I think if you've all signed in, it is always good to talk to your state legislator, make sure you call your state senator, let them know how important this is to you and what it means in the big picture, not just as a single issue, but how offended you are that the governor of the state of Illinois, the highest office in this state, would tell the public his position on something that is so important to women and to pro-choice people in Illinois, and to absolutely flip-flop on it. I feel so betrayed by this guy. So betrayed. And you know what? We should put up with it. I have to tell you that the Democrats, there's a million ways to think about this. The Democrats who were on the bubble leaning no are probably so angry that they stood in solidarity with their hard pro-choice colleagues on the floor just to say to Bruce Rauner, you're going to get this on your desk and you're going to sign it. And that's probably one of the reasons, because they knew that he was trying to sabotage the votes that were on it. There are some times that when members know a controversial issue isn't going to be signed for by a governor, they will not vote for it. They don't want to take the risk. But the opposite happened in this situation. So we will let you know, we will proactively tell you if there are problems in the Senate. My prediction is it will pass overwhelmingly with only Democratic votes also. If there's anyone who we think will not support it, we will reach out to you and let you know. But always say thank you when you find out that your state legislators are supporting this and standing with you.
Focus on the government.
Yes, but once this gets to the governor's desk, and we're not sure on the timing of all of this, it could be, you know, sometime in, you know, the late summer, early fall, because of how, you know, just the timing of the bill. We're going to have to put extraordinary pressure on him. As Greg said earlier, he responds to pressure. This could very well, this big lie could very well be one of the primary reasons that this man is no longer our governor, which would be a good thing.
And so those phone calls will be going out of my office and many other offices, whether it's to the Senate, whether it's directly to the governor, but not just on House Bill 40, on all sorts of bills and all sorts of measures. But those same phone calls should be going out regarding the governor's responsibility to do the budget. He can blame Mike Madigan all he wants. He is still the governor of the state of Illinois. And he has the ultimate responsibility to drive this train to the station. And if he's unwilling to do it, he should just simply tell us he's unwilling to do it, because in 2018, we're going to find someone else to do it.
Representative Lang, thank you so much for being the chief sponsor of the Equal Rights Amendment all these years. And we women are not going back. We want our equal rights guaranteed in the federal Constitution, and yes, we want it now. We got it passed in the Illinois Senate. How many votes do we need to get it passed in the House of Representatives? If we can get House Bill 40 passed, we certainly ought to be able to get this passed.
The problem with passing ERA in the House right now is that it requires 71 votes, which is a supermajority.
What do we have?
We have 67 Democrats in the House, but there's probably 5 or 6 of those that don't support it for whatever reason. They are in downstate Illinois, very conservative Democrats. They agree with us on many, many issues, but not every issue. So we're going to require probably 10 or so Republican votes. To date, I have 0 Republicans willing to put women's equal rights in the United States Constitution. Let me tell you, the exact language we're trying to put into the federal Constitution is already in the Illinois Constitution. And yet these bozos won't do the right thing, and bozos is what they are. And so I haven't given up. You shouldn't give up. We're going to continue to work on this. And by the way, while I'm on the subject of human rights, and while I'm on the subject of passing tough bills, I just have to tell you, in case you don't know, my good friend Greg Harris is the person that authored and sponsored gay marriage in the state of Illinois. Do not know of any bill that's ever been tougher to pass in the history of our state than that one, and this is the guy that led it to victory. And he deserves all of our plaudits.
My comment is for the Illinois legislators. I am very concerned about the decreasing amount of mental health services in our state. When I was a young social worker in the 70s, we had mental health services that the poor or people who didn't have a lot of money could go to in each catchment area of Chicago. We had 4 hospitals up here, mental hospitals. Now they're dwindling more and more, and as our country is getting more and more chaotic, we really need good mental health services.
Well, that is a great and important statement, and you'll be happy to know that for the first time in many years, at the urging of Sarah and I, the Illinois House now has a mental health committee. And this mental health committee is going to be working on funding, it's going to be working on housing, it's going to be working on the problems that schools have with school children, the problems where there's a crossover between drug addiction and mental illness, the problems of mental illness in the prisons. Sheriff Tom Dart would tell you that Cook County Jail is the world's largest provider of mental health services, and that cannot continue to be. We intend over the next year to be traveling the state to hear from providers, from patients, from everybody who will listen to tell us how to fix the problems of mental illness in the state of Illinois. And you're right on the button, and we are going to get that done.
Can I say one thing? I want to say, it is true that the Cook County Jail is the largest institution that houses people with mental illness, but actually for providing services, not so much. And Tom Dart actually came and testified before my health subcommittee in Washington to make that point. And I want to say that even with all the talk at the federal level about 21st century cures, and Obamacare has made it better, provided more Medicaid support for mental health services, we're still lagging far behind on what we need to do. So your point is great. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for having us today. I am someone who's motivated. I have more of a comment rather than a question. I'm someone who, I tell people I walk the streets for candidates because I get people's names and signatures for the ballots. And so you've got already people here who are partners with you. And I've said this to anybody who will listen, all the elected officials I've run into. My biggest frustration with the Democratic Party is that we suck at messaging. So the Republicans are much better at it, especially nationwide, of getting their people to the polls, and we can do what we can do, but we need you as partners because you've got much more resources than we do, and we have to hit people emotionally instead of intellectually. That's why we lost the election. One of the reasons we lost the election in November for the president. So that's my comment.
So you make this excellent point. And here's three legislators, Greg and Sarah and I, who have been jumping up and down in Springfield, talking to other Democrats, creating new websites, creating new social media and Twitter, and trying to get a better, clearer, more solid message that Democrats can run on all over the state. We should have a message that the most conservative Democratic member of the House can speak in Skokie about, or where I can go to his or her district and speak. We should have a message that we all understand and we can all articulate. That's why over the last several months, I have, in my social media, created much more robust presence. Got a new website you should all check out, replewlang.com. You should go to House Deputy Majority Leader Lou Lang. That's where you see most of my snark about Governor Rauner, which you should all read and memorize. So these are the things we're all doing, but as a group, as a Democratic Party, we've recently started to do social media collectively in a way we haven't done it before, and we're starting to work on message. We're not too far behind at the moment, but we're getting there, and I think you'll see over the next couple of months some real changes there.
Well, I'm great at messaging, so I'm offering to help. I'll give you my name.
We will take you up on that. Thank you. Go right ahead.
Hi, Jan. Probably I just said that Jan is a classmate. Very proud of you. Judy. Anyway, yes. I have two questions. The first one is about, to your point of bigger is better, size matters, these marches, the women's march was tremendous, and then you have all these other marches. While the issues are important, some of the things could be consolidated and you would get more people involved and make a bigger statement. When you divide it up, like the science march, the climate march, isn't climate change science? And 3 weeks in a row I went to marches, and yesterday was no picnic. Very totally good. My God, we're so. If you could combine those marches, like the tax march was very disappointing turnout because people were getting a little bit tight And the more marches you have close together like that, you're diluting the enthusiasm, you're diluting the resources. People can't always make it to the march and they think, well, I went to the one last week, I'm not going to the one this week. Is there any way to coordinate the march organizers so there are fewer, bigger
Yeah, I hear you.
marches?
See, I don't entirely agree with that. I think that the Women's March, and I think it's really only under the banner of women, that we could bring all these different passions and issues together. So you saw all these different signs for the environment, for the president releases taxes, certainly on women's issues. And that was this huge demonstration. And now I think people are also following their particular passion and saying, there are tens of thousands of people. You add up what happened around the country yesterday. And tomorrow is going to be a huge immigration rally, that there is a constituency that is enormous for each one of these. I was at the tax one. I thought it was pretty darn big and impressive, and it was one of hundreds around the country. So I think that people get the idea that all of these issues are not really siloed. That's what the Women's March said. It was intersectionality. That's what my millennial friends want to, that's a great word. That we're all, that's what they, right, am I right? Millennials, intersectionality, okay. And using it as in a sentence will make your grandchildren proud of you. Okay, so, but the idea that we are all one. So I don't think we're diluting it. I think that we're having, as these issues come up in Congress, we have a demonstration of large support. I think the immigrant events tomorrow are going to be enormous, and focusing in on each one of these, I happen to think, is not diluting, but actually highlighting each one of the things that we care about. So,
Okay, well, when you have issues that logically could be combined, rather than split them up.
yeah, science and climate, okay, it's all about facts.
Now that all together, we're going to have a much larger demonstration, even though they were respectable sizes.
I agree on that one. Just to know though, no one needs to worry that the earth will end in a flood, because one of my colleagues at a hearing said, God promised Noah that the earth, which prompted me to just remind people that everything they say in a hearing is on the record, the permanent record, and they might want to not embarrass their grandchildren. That was not well received.
My second question is about when you're talking about 2020. When do we start demonstrating, writing, calling about either repealing or reforming the Electoral College?
Yeah. I'm on a bill that absolutely would do that. Obviously, it has no chance of passing right now, because as recently as yesterday, Trump was bragging about his huge electoral victory. He hasn't moved in message really strong. It's 100 days from day one. It's pretty much the same thing. Yes, I agree that that's the kind of structural change. There is a way, other than amending the Constitution, to change the Electoral College. This is how, in the states, there are already, I can't remember, I think it's 12 states that have passed laws that, you're going to look it up for me? Okay. That have passed laws that said that the electors in their state have to vote for whomever won the popular vote. And so if we can get enough states to do that, to end up with enough electoral votes, it's over. It's over. So there is another way. If we can organized around the country. I don't think Illinois, how many? 11, and Illinois, I don't believe is one. And Illinois is one of them. All right, so Illinois has already said that. So I think that in some ways that would be easier if
Then have, instead of.
Then have to go.
All have proportional, the elected.
No. Then have to go, no, to change the Constitution. That would be easier to do that than have a constitutional amendment. So that's another way that we're going at it. In the meantime, I'm also supporting legislation in the Congress to do that. So.
Thank you. My name is Habib Abasi. I'm the Skokie resident and play Skokie Board of Health member. My question is, I thank you, Lou, Carl Reddy, Sara Feigenholtz, giving us update what to do. Thank you very much for coming. And my question is, I've been a director in the hospital for 43 years, and Mr. Rauner is fair, is leader who fair. He can't get along with the people who oppose him, so it's time to go, and we need to do more aggressively, and the same thing goes for Trump. My question is to you, like refugees, I think refugees are what we heard from Sarah, they go through more screening than among us here in this hall, we live here. Why is there any way it could be done? Because this is unhuman, this is uncivilized, and we have to stand up because this country is founded on immigration, and we have to fight for it, and there is no way these people have to go away and do certain things. Anything we do, we will be willing to do it. Well, thank you very much.
Well, let me just say, to give you a general answer to this, there isn't anything that's going on that we aren't paying attention to. So we want to hear your ideas. So come in and talk to me in the office and let me hear what you have to say. And let's talk together about some ideas we can put together to make a difference.
I will believe to it.
Yeah.
I think you were talking about the local health department. Is that where you work? So it's important for everybody in this room to know that the way we distribute funds is through what's called the Local Health Protection Grant. And it is in a portion of the budget that is not Medicaid matchable. Therefore, all local health departments are also are underfunded or also not getting, is that true? Oh, they're under Beeks. So they are getting their money. But I will guarantee you that in the governor's budget that he's proposing, that he is going to continue to cut local health protection grants, which essentially, you know, it endangers all of your lives. It means there's not enough food inspectors in restaurants. There's not enough people preventing disease. There's not enough, you know, these people, you know, people who work in local health departments are the unsung heroes. You never know about them because they spend their lives averting health disasters. And I'm sure Representative Harris can add.
Actually not. I just wanted to add one more thing that I think this gentleman's question brought up that I don't think we've said yet. Never before did we in the state legislature think that we were going to have to follow everything Congress was undoing in this country that has made us the proud nation we are. We never thought we would have to at the state level. Look at the Congress disrespecting immigrants or disrespecting women, rolling back rights. So we're carefully going through everything that Trump is trying to do, whether it's immigration and refugee issues, whether it's women's health care, whether it's the Affordable Care Act and Medicaid, violence prevention, and we're working through right now enacting protections at the state level to the best degree that an individual state can. Equal pay for women for equal work. I mean, you'd think that would be a no-brainer, but in Trump world, that's on the block also. So all those things are also moving through the Illinois legislature right now so that we can defend what we can defend in our state.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to try before we close to get through these last three questions. So go ahead.
I would like to bring back this topic of law enforcement and the safety of the state, where the crime rate went up, and there are many things that we need to talk about. We talked about human rights, women's rights, minority rights. What about Muslims not to be called radicals? Do they have the right to defend? This ban is wrong. Why Islam became terrorist in just a few years and it was not like that before? And have anyone read the last speech of Prophet Muhammad, in which we have all rules for human rights, women's rights, and rights of all kinds of human beings? The question is, one second, the question is, why Islam became terrorist in just a few years and it was not like that before?
Sadly, I think the answer is there are a lot of people in this country, like the Donald Trumps and the Ben Carsons and the Marco Rubios of the world, who want to find a convenient enemy, somebody to organize around and generate fear about. And through our country's history, there have been people like that, whether it's been African Americans, whether it's been the Irish, whether it's been Chinese, whether it's been Jews. People are always trying to find an enemy. And sadly, right now, I think Islam has become something that they can attack.
I just came back from a lot of Muslim countries, which one of them is even Egypt and Qatar and Tunisia. Tunisia is a liberal Muslim country, and girls are going with their knees, and you can go to the beach and get a vacation for $183 for 7 nights, all inclusive. By the way, and I don't think that they are radicals at all. They're Christians and Jews and everybody that welcome to those countries, and they don't do anything for you. And Cairo has many churches, and everybody goes to church and nobody kills anybody. So again, I've been there. I just came back, and they are not radical. They're just Muslims. Radicals are radicals, and Muslims are Muslims.
Thank you so much. The other thing is, Donald Trump was so moved by the images of little babies being gassed. Those are the same little babies that he wants to bar from coming to the United States of America.
Sorry to interrupt you. My husband actually is supposed to come from Pakistan. I'm married to Pakistani. Half Lebanese and Pakistani. He lives in Dubai. And I cannot bring him over where I'm at just because of this ban.
We might be able to help with that.
Sure.
Come to my office.
Thank you.
My second question starts with Greg Harris. Illinois has this great safety net for social services, and we're trying to preserve that. How can we make sure it gets paid for?
I think that everyone who looks at our state's financial situation and from a realistic point of view would say we need more revenue and we need to make structural reforms that reduce costs going forward in a sensible way. So where do you find revenue? There are many places we can go that are not going to affect the average taxpayer. I don't know if anyone here knows that 65% of the corporations in Illinois pay absolutely no tax in our state because of the corporate tax loopholes that have been built into the law. So the first place I would start is corporate tax loophole closures. There are ways we can generate, hundreds of millions, if not billions more of federal matching dollars by structuring our Medicaid and other programs more sensibly to bring federal money in as matching grants into the state. So there are a lot of ways we can go about revenue, but you've got to have a governor who's willing to sign the bill when it comes. Right now, he's just trying to blow up the process.
And let me add, Democrats have said from the beginning we need a balanced approach. Some cuts, some new revenue. So the last budget we passed and we put on the governor's desk that he vetoed had close to $1 billion in cuts. And he thought that was out of balance. And of course, under the law of the state of Illinois, he could have taken that and made reduction vetoes and we would have been virtually powerless to stop him. But instead he vetoed the budget. I am the chief sponsor of the progressive income tax. I think it's something we must do in the state of Illinois to create tax fairness, to create more revenue, so that the rich pay their share and everybody below pays their share. Unfortunately, we got this close to having enough votes to pass it. The governor went into a Republican caucus and he shut it down. The 5 or 6 Republicans who were prepared to vote for it somehow changed their mind, even though, under the bill I proposed, I want you to all listen to this. For all the talk about how much revenue a progressive income tax would bring, under that bill, 99.6% of all Illinois taxpayers would have received a tax cut. And yet the Republican Party was opposed to it. So when they tell you they're not the party for rich people, don't believe them. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to thank all of you for being here and sponsoring this meeting this afternoon. You've all done a great job. 2 points. On a national level, the thing that scares me the most about the current administration is the appointment to the Supreme Court. There are probably, I would say, at least 2 new appointees down the road in the next term for President Trumpster. That scares me to have a far right-wing Supreme Court. Very, very scary. The one point that you made, Representative Lang, that is most accurate is getting out the vote. The national level, less than 50% of the voting electorate cast a ballot. To me, that's totally unacceptable. State of Illinois, almost the same. Why people don't vote is beyond me. People around the world die for the right to vote. In many countries that are dictatorships, absolute cruel individuals, we, on the other hand, have the freedom of choice, and for lack of a better term, a lot of people just sit on their derriere and let the other guy vote for them, which is totally wrong. I would say this on a state level. I am a former teacher, CPS. As many may know, or some may know, I know the lawmakers know that a number of the CPS schools perform at a very high rate. Not only the magnet schools, but other neighborhood schools as well. I'm a former teacher. My wife is still a teacher, hopefully will retire one day. The issue of educational funding is of major concern to me. The governor doesn't seem to care about public schools. Educational funding in this state is totally unequal, and you probably saw over the weekend where the court rejected the CPS appeal. And I'm not going to say anything out of line, but I would say, not the legislatures, because it does care, even though the Sunday Sun Times blames both the governor and the state legislature for not doing its job in funding schools. The question I have for you, Representative Lang, and the other representatives on the panel. All right, the Democrats have a majority in the House and in the Senate. When Governor Rauner, and I have another name for him, which I will not use, vetoes legislation, what are the possibilities and the ability to override this lame governor's vetoes? Thank you.
So let me first say that we have been working very hard to try to deal with the disparities of education funding around the state. But even some Democrats disagree. There's a Democratic senator from downstate named Andy Manar who basically wants to play Robin Hood. He wants to take property tax dollars from the areas that do well and send them downstate. Not acceptable to us. But we have a current group working. In fact, we had a caucus the other day about this very issue. And I think before the end of this session, they're going to come up with some plan for us to look at. So it's an important issue. Dealing with the governor's override on this issue is no different than dealing with overriding the governor on any other issue. if the bought and paid for Republicans in the Illinois House continue to be bought and paid for by the rich right-wing Republicans and they continue to be afraid of Governor Rauner, they will never cross him. They haven't, and they won't. Imagine this. There are, I think, 3 House Republicans who live in college towns. They live in Quincy, they live in Charleston. They live in college towns. Those college towns are dying because the universities are dying. We put a bill up on the board to fund those universities right now. Those 3 Republicans voted no and somehow got reelected. Don't understand that, you don't understand that, no one can understand that. But until their constituents rise up and threaten them politically and make them more afraid of them than these guys are of Governor Rauner, they will never change their votes. But we're going to work on it. Thank you. So we're just about ready to close, but before we do, first I want to thank everyone on the panel, Greg Harris, Ina Winston, Sara Feigenholtz, Jan Schakowsky. I'd like to thank my staff, Eden Asani, David Orr,